What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for December 11th, 2022. Bad loss for the Temple Owls yesterday. They got blown out by Penn by 20. They had a shot to win the outright Big Five title, couldn't get it done. So they'll settle for at least a share. I think they're going to end up sharing with Nova. And it is what it is. They beat Nova, but then Nova beat Penn, just the way the ball bounces. But Dingle for Penn, who we talked about on the college basketball preview, is a stud. He lit them up. Which I didn't realize, he's the third leading scorer right now in the entire country, or something crazy like that. So they didn't have an answer for him, which typically, that's in true Temple fashion. That's what happens. The best guy on the team, when things go bad for them, and it's always been that way historically, that's what happens. The best guy just dominates them. So they have a couple more non-conference games, and then they move on to the AAC schedule, which I watched some of Houston yesterday. They look pretty good. I picked them. If you listen to Back to the Future, I did pick them as one of the sleeper teams, or not, I guess they wouldn't necessarily be a sleeper, but they were one of the final four teams that I picked. So we're anxious to see if that continues. But Sixers down at the FU Center tonight against the Hornets. Hopefully they have a bounce back after nearly blowing that game against the Lakers the other night. I want to see them just be consistent. That is Doc's thing. I don't know. And then Maxi should be back by Christmas, I'm hearing. So that's good. They'll have their full team. But will Doc be there to be the coach? And that still remains to be seen. Unfortunately, I don't see them making the move that we all want. Everybody is kind of expecting it, but I'm not seeing it. So I don't know. So let's just pray that Doc can get it together and become a good coach. But we'll see. The Flyers are out in Arizona to take on the Coyotes tonight. Want to continue to see Carter Hart play well and some of the young guys, but not get those wins so they can get up in the draft pick rankings. Today is Eagles game day. We'll talk about that game in a minute. But first, back in 1982 on this day, December 11th, 1982, we've talked before about this team and the impact that Moses Malone had. But the Sixers were coming off a loss to the Celtics, came back, beat the Pistons 128-111 at the Spectrum. It was their fifth win in December. They ended up going 11-2 that December and just rode that momentum to the NBA championship. And so we talked the night, I think it was Moses had 20-20, I think, or whatever crazy stats or crazy numbers he had. Today, this is going to be the Dr. J Appreciation Day, because I think a lot of times people forget how good Dr. J really, really was. And he dropped 44 points that day. He was 20 for 29 shooting, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, and 8 blocks. So that's a pretty monster day. He was very close to a quadruple double, but just goes back to show just how good he really was and just how loaded that team was. And I mean, Mo Cheeks threw in 20. Moses had 17 points, 13 boards. It just was a very, very good team. I would have loved to have been old enough to kind of follow and watch this team, because I bet it would have been fun. And I grew up watching the NBA late in the 80s, early 90s. So I caught like the tail end of some of the like the Celtics, the Lakers being good. When I really first started watching the NBA was when the Pistons were finally able to overtake Boston and win, and then it led right into the Michael Jordan era. So I would have loved to have seen more, or been able to understand and grasp really what was happening a lot of times in those the 80s, especially with the Sixers-Celtics rivalry, or the Lakers with them as well. But on this day, December 11th, 1982, Sixers beat the Pistons 128-111. The Doctor dropped 44 on 20 for 29 shooting, through 11 boards, 7 assists, and 8 blocks to boot. 8 blocks. Think about that. That's just how much this man could jump. But back to the Eagles now. So it is Eagles game day. They are taking on the Giants, which I've talked a lot about over multiple different podcasts. For my money, it's the Giants are my team that I despise more so than the Cowboys. And yeah, I hate the Cowboys, don't get me wrong, but it's just something that I feel it's probably for me the geography. It's the fact that the cities are kind of similar, and Philly was always kind of the little brother to New York almost, even though we kind of like even going back to colonial days, it was like that. And I think it was that the geography and just like the fan base is more similar than what you have with Cowboys because you don't have, and I know a couple of them, which is crazy, but most of the time Giants fans are from New York. You don't see a guy who grew up in Philly. I know one guy who did, but you don't see a lot of guys growing up in Philly that are Giants fans. So like you have that natural rivalry. Most of them that are Giants fans are from north of Allentown or north of Trenton in Jersey, and it's just more of that rivalry. But enough about that. Let's get back to the pick. Right now, the spread on this game is 7, and I keep going back and forth, like trying to figure out a way that the Giants are going to cover this spread. And I can't see it. I think the Eagles have a playoff berth on the line. I think they're going to come out ready to play. The Giants have not been good in their last 5. They're 1-3-1. I think that game last week against Washington kind of exposed them for what they are. They're a team on the rise. I just don't think talent-wise, they don't necessarily match up with the Eagles. I don't see how they're going to be able to stop that offense. Saquon Barkley is a game time decision I saw last night, but even if he does play, is it going to be enough? I don't necessarily think their receivers are good. Like I can't figure out a way for the Giants to cover the spread. I've tried to come up. The only thing is it is a division game and those games are closer, but I think what happens in this game, it's going to be one of those games where we're watching and it's going to be a boring game. And it's going to seem like it's much closer than what it is. And at the end of the day, the Eagles are going to win by like 10, 11, 12, 13 points. I just feel like you're going to say, wow, like they're up 2 scores in this game. And it's not going to seem like it because it's going to be one of those old school NFC East battles. I think it's supposed to rain here in Philly, so I don't know what it's going to do up in New York, but it might be rainy. It's going to be cold, windy, I'm sure. I can't figure out how the Eagles or the Giants are going to cover this spread. So we're going to go. We're 5-7 so far on the picks. We're going to go and take the Eagles minus the 7 points. I think they win 10, 11, 12, 13. And we're not going to realize that they're up that much. So, and there is the Dabble connection. He was the offensive coordinator when Jalen Hurts got benched for Tunga Vailoa. So I feel like Jalen Hurts kind of is that quiet guy who he's nice to your face. Oh yeah, I love Brian Dabble, blah blah blah. But like inside, he's like steaming. He's still fuming. He held on to that. He seems like he takes those slights and those things, kind of like a Michael Jordan thing, and he doesn't forget. And I think he's gonna come out with something to prove to Dabble. And I think that's like an X factor in this game that nobody's really talking about because they're talking about how good of friends they are. And I just think something inside of him, and if he ever gets the chance to play Nick Saban, he's got a little something for Nick too, I'm sure. But Eagles minus the 7. If they win, they're in the playoffs. Or if they tie, they're in the playoffs. Or if the 49ers and Seahawks lose, they're in the playoffs. That's about all they can do right now. But because of the tiebreakers, they have essentially a 2-game lead over Minnesota for the top seed. And they also are up, technically right now, 3 games, I believe. Call it 2.5 because they still have to play the Cowboys in a couple weeks over Dallas for the division. So things are looking good. Got to keep the gas pedal down. Don't want to see a let up here. But like I said, I cannot. Maybe I'm crazy and I'm looking with my Kelly Green goggles on today, but I cannot find a way that the Giants cover this spread. So Sixers beat the Pistons this day in 1982. Temple utterly choked against Penn. Sixers in action tonight. Flyers in action tonight. But it's all about the Birds, baby. Go have yourselves a Sunday. Go Birds. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.